Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Traffic Trade Group, and it is Thursday, March 3rd, and this is your end of day market recap. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, education purposes only. So let's get right into the theme of the day. Well, it's kind of just more of what we've been seeing, very whippy, whatever adjective you want to use here, whippy, choppy. Look at the performance of the Qs the last couple days, right? So if you've been watching my videos the last couple days, right, you heard me kind of be pretty negative on Tuesday after the close. I mentioned I didn't like the S&P chart. I didn't like the way things were kind of looking. I listed 3 or 4 things that I mentioned that just I didn't like with the technicals. One, a couple of things like the S&P below the 20, the 50, the 200-day moving average, right? And then we saw a nice move back yesterday. And one of the things that I try to communicate in yesterday's video was just, try not to be complacent about this market because of the trend. One day, that one day move yesterday just really didn't give us any type of signal in terms of just basically a bounce. And then when you look at today's price action, while the S&P only down about 0.5%, that's SPY. S&P futures down a little bit less than that. It again continues to be kind of more of a not a lot of follow through with this market from day to day, and looking at the Qs, right? It kind of just gives you that sense, right? Down 1.5% on Tuesday. Sorry, Monday we were up slightly. Sorry, Tuesday we were down 1.5%. Yesterday we were up 1.7%, and today we're down another 1.4%. I even was joking around in the trading room yesterday. I'm like, if you're following, and I said if you're following the pattern, we'll be down close to 2% tomorrow, and which was today. And again, it was just a joke, but this is the price action that we're getting. So why is this happening so much? There's a lot of indecision in the market. Obviously we're really we're moving on headlines, and we in particular, right, we know that the Russia-Ukraine conflict seems to be the way that this is playing out in terms of how the market is reacting is whenever they schedule a meeting in terms of that they're going to possibly sit down and negotiate, the market likes that, and it rallies. Once the meeting happens, and this is something that we talked about pre-market, if they're not going to get anything done, which there really seems like there's not much that they're getting done. It seems like while they're agreeing to talk, they're not really agreeing on anything else. So when the meeting adjourns or gets through, the market just kind of goes back to what it was doing prior to that. So let's talk a little bit about the technicals. And I just wanted to illustrate this is that, and I think the takeaway is here is that you just can't get too positive on the positive days, right? Also, it's important not to get too negative on the down days, because they've actually been buying opportunities this week. I don't know if that continues to be that way, but for now, that's what it is. So it's really hard to make heads or tails of this S&P chart. What I try to do is to basically just, again, tell you what I see on the chart. Number one, we're inside value for March. That's a positive, and probably the only positive that I see on this chart, other than at least that the price is above the 5-day moving average. But that's the super short-term moving average. What I would really like to see is us to get above the 20-day moving average. Notice that this was rejected today, right where we're supposed to kind of overtake it. We're not there yet. Notice we've got a distance before we get to the 50 to the 200, and a distance before we get to the 50-day moving average. Again, I like to use those moving averages for confirmation of the trend and the health of the market. When I see us below the 20, the 50, the 200, I think that we're in a pretty weak market, right? Or not a healthy market, right? And that is what it is. Okay. All right. So that's it. 1 hour, if you want to look at that time frame, I've made some mention of this 43.7850 level. We got above it just briefly and just really couldn't do much. You can see we're doing a lot of consolidation around the top of the value area for the week, right? If we can get above there, there are some things that possibly would get a little bit exciting, but first things first, we'd have to get above 43.78 for now, right? But again, very, very choppy market, right? I'll just talk Qs and IWM really quickly. I just continue to think that this Qs is a much more difficult trade right now. I've spent some time with members. Member video was extra long today, just talking about, you know, talking about how I think a lot of traders are still fixated on 2020 names, 2020, 21 names, right? They're just looking for those names to come back. The FANG names, these names to me just do not have the momentum. They look weak to me, or if they're not looking weak, they look too choppy to me. So it's just going to take, like, if that's your thing and those are your names, I think they need a lot more time. Now, our job as a trader and risk manager is to continue to monitor until those setups start to appear. So I don't really have any positions in those names, and I won't until they act much better. Fine to keep on your radar, but right now that's just not where the momentum is. We'll talk about, again, where the momentum is in this right now in this market, as we've been doing now for weeks, but we'll just go a little bit further into that, and where I'm looking for some other, possibly some other bright spots in this market. But that's the NASDAQ. That's also inside value, but same picture there. And then, of course, we'll look at IWM, or if you want to look at Russell Futures, that is very close. It was one of the things I said, hey, that'll be cool if IWM can get above the value area. But notice this also got rejected too. So again, the picture here is, it's a mess for the major indices right now. And again, the translation there is, you just have to be patient with this market until it hopefully straightens out a little bit. There's a lot of scenarios that we could go through. I'm not going to waste your time with talking about, could we revisit the lows? I think anything is possible. We'll see how it plays out. All right. All right. So let's talk about, where the momentum is right now. Crude actually backed off. It's a pretty parabolic move at this point, right? Copper, right, up 2.5%. So I think, like, here's my hunch a little bit. I think that the energy group has been a wonderful trade now for months. Maybe it kind of digests a little bit considering how heated it is, but it may not, right? There's certain things that are just continuing to get more overbought, but that's what my instincts tell me in crude. And I actually took some profits. I took Exxon off today. I was looking to replace it with something, but I just decided to kind of hold off for now, right? All right, so here's the chart of copper, right? This is, interesting to me, right? So again, different, right, than how the major indices are looking. So it's all about the commodities right now. How long does it stay like this? I don't know regarding all of the commodity plays, but I could tell you copper's not overbought here, right? And this is a nice looking pattern in copper. So I like this chart a lot. We've been talking about these plays for now, a couple weeks. We talked about SCCO, right? In a pre-market session. It was either yesterday morning or I think it was yesterday morning that we talked about it. If not, if it was 2 days ago, I'm mixing up my days, but it's funny. I talk about how this works sometimes, is that sometimes the option activity is very late. Today we saw calls in SCCO, right? This is the third or fourth day of a rally. So, if you did your homework, right, you found this trade, right, as we did a couple of days ago in the trading room. But this is one, here's where I would say, well, here's where this move started. But really, like, I wouldn't necessarily catch it here. But 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 days now they're buying calls. That's too late for me. Right. But that's often how we see the call buying. A lot of times it is late. I like this chart. This is the COPX, right? So it's got more to it than just FCX, Freeport-McMoRan, and SCCO, right? It's a little bit more diversified. right? So that's very strong right now. Again, just showing you where there's strength in this market. And I think also we were talking about this ETF today and joking around about it. I've been long some of these commodity plays for a couple days, right? But something like this is kind of interesting. If you look on the weekly chart, right? On the weekly chart, first of all, look at the volume this week, and also note that the overall ETF is not overbought. Now, there are definitely some plays, right? And these are the plays that we've been doing, right? CF Industries is something that I've been long in the TTG trend portfolio right now for probably a couple months at this point. So would I buy this name here? No, I wouldn't. It's overbought. I would wait for it to come in to you. Same thing with Bungie, right? Which is also in the TTG trend portfolio. We added this last week. I think it was, I believe it was last week. Sorry, sometimes the days fly by and I forget which exact day it is. And then I got long Archer Daniels Midland towards the end of last week, right? And this trade has also worked out. So all of these, right? They're overbought at this point. So I think what you want to do is kind of wait for, and this is what I'm thinking too, right? Is, waiting for these things, because again, I'm not giving out any advice or recommendations, but waiting for these to pull back a little bit, because again, the trend is good with these things, right? And right now, if you look at the trade, if you look at what inflation is doing, right? Powell has now spoken for 2 days. He's testified in front of Congress, one day the House, one day the Senate. And, he's talked about right now, he was asked point blank what he would be doing on the March meeting if it was today. And he said, I would be raising rates 0.25 percentage point, right? Now that may change, but that's what his view is. And I don't think he's being dishonest about that. Why he doesn't do that now is a very good question. I don't know why he needs to wait till then, but for whatever reason, they're waiting. It doesn't make any sense to me that they're waiting for that. But it is what it is. They are. I can't tell them to do anything different. Also, if you look at this ETF, if I can find it, right? This is the inflation ETF, right? Over IEF. I've talked about this chart before. This also, doesn't it look like even though this is bonds, right? Treasury and inflation protected securities in that TIP ETF over regular treasuries, right? So we're looking at the spread, but doesn't that chart look very close to what I just showed you in the agriculture, right? On the weekly, right? It kind of looks somewhat similar, not exact, but somewhat similar. All right, so these are the things that I think are really interesting right now. I could go and I could talk, we could talk about the steel names again. I've talked about this ETF now for a few days this week. I'm surprised that it took another leg up here, up another 3.2%. But again, and look at the volume, right? So this is where the money is going in this market, right? It's not going into those other areas, right? It's not going into the small cap growth, right? And again, we'll monitor for when that changes, but it continues to go into commodities and inflation plays, right? That is where this market is right now. There's some other areas too, and I can go into 15 of these charts in metals and mining. They all look the same. You could look at, and some of these names, it's tough to get them straight. Here's a Consol Energy, right? Here's a CENX, very similar symbols, right? If you want to look at the coal group, by the way, did they do a major disservice by getting rid of the coal ETF? It used to be KOL. They got rid of that, I think, somewhere around a year ago. I mean, these names are just on fire. So you could go through one by one. Interesting because they do ARLP, I think is the other one. Nope. Anyway, I can't remember this. So I told you I can't remember the symbols. And here's another one, METC, which has been hot. I mean, they're all doing the same thing, right? So, if you've had some exposure to these names, great. Palladium is another area too, right? That we continue that we talk about almost every day. You know, this 28.97 VPOC looks like it's going to be taken out up here, you know, previous level of high volume, right? So again, showing you all the areas that are acting constructive. I'm not talking about, you know, if I wanted to, we could go through these charts. I see a lot of people posting this and then posting like a wedge of it. I don't know what the point is. You know, I think if, you know, this just looks sideways to me. Why bother? Why bother and try to figure out a chart? I don't care how many studies you overlay with it. It's still going to look sideways. Zoom in, zoom out, whatever you want to do. Put another fancy indicator on it. It's still going to look sideways, right? And you know, so why bother right now with something like this? It doesn't look particularly healthy, right? And if you go across names, right, we talk again, I don't mean to pick on, again, the ARK fund, but they're not changing what they're doing, right? They're saying that the market is wrong and we're right, and this fund just continues to go down, right? And I think, you know, there's a short opportunity, right, at the bottom of value, and maybe this thing comes and takes out the lows. If not, your stop is here. If you don't want to mess with this ETF, and you want, because long short strategies have worked. There was a put buyer today in consumer discretionary, right? If you think about what's happening with the consumer right now, or what will be happening, paying higher gas prices, paying higher food prices, you know, consumer discretionary areas. And, you know, I've been a fan of the reopening play, but are people going to spend like they have been spending, right? Keep in mind, this data point came out today too, which was a change, which also didn't help things. ISM services, right? I pay much more attention to the ISM data. Some of the leading indicators, I don't pay attention to, like GDP, because that is what's known as a lagging indicator, right? It will tell you what happened a couple months ago, right? The ISM services is a little bit more forward looking. Notice it came in at 56.5, right? So, I mean, it could signal that, you know, the consumer is not going to be as bullish, right? And it makes logical sense considering, you know, what's going on in the commodity space. All right. Other areas of the market, you know, that have been acting fairly well, you know, is unfortunately some of the defensive areas, which I know traders are not excited about, right? They're not exciting, right? The utilities, right? This is Con Ed, right? So if you're from the East Coast, you've heard of this company, but this is breaking out, right? So, you know, where does this go? You know, probably a couple more bucks up, right? And it's a dividend payer, right? So again, I'm not, you know, in these videos, right? I don't try to tell you like, you know, to give you false things, right? I'm just telling you what right now is trending and what looks pretty decent. Consumer staples are also acting pretty well as a group, right? And you can kind of go through. Remember, this name was hot a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. Same thing, Hershey breaking out to new highs, right? A couple names that I like too are the rail names, right? Now this didn't close at the highs, but I'll be watching this one tomorrow. Right, it still finished up 1.2% for the day, so strong, right? ICE, right? I do like the exchange names. I would think that the exchange names would be, you know, moving pretty decently. I mentioned CME was one of my setups this morning, right? That I talked about, right? And even something like, you know, like a Dollar Tree, which has been consolidating for a while, got back to highs, right? Or close to highs, I should say. What else do I have written down here? ICE, I mentioned CME, right, which has some resistance. All right, so that's another one that's on my sheet. What has been working well in growth has been the cyber names. I do like what's going on here with Palo Alto. You know, maybe it might consolidate that move for, you know, maybe another day or two. I'm still long this name. I took a couple targets in this thing, but I'll wait and I'll watch. But what I like about this is, you know, nice volume on the break higher, right? And then look at the volume start to kind of tailor off a little bit. So as long as it kind of holds in here, you know, it's possible that Palo Alto continues higher, right? So that's another name that I like. The gold miners, right? I'm still long some Newmont. I did take a target today in Newmont, right? And I'm looking to take this trade off at right around 71.80. WPM, I'm still long. I have not taken a target yet in this one, consolidating quite nicely above the downward downtrend line, as well as outside of value. Here's the trade blotter for me. Like I do show my trades, right? A couple bad trades today. I'll admit it. You know, I got into SQQQ, so I was looking to play the downside in the Qs, and as soon as I put the trade on, there was a positive headline, and I got stopped out like within a couple minutes. I just decided I didn't know what the headline was. I didn't know what was moving the market, so I got out of that one. DBA was a bad entry, right? So sometimes we do this. I'm like, I don't want to go into this right now. You know, we saw a lot of call buying in wheat, corn, DBA, but I don't know what they're doing. It's too late of a move, I think, to be putting on a fresh new trade. So I just backed out of that one pretty quickly. ON, you know, listen, sometimes we think we're going to get a move and we don't get a move. This was a name that had good earnings. It ended up down 2% for the day. I put on a starter pre-market. Sometimes I do this before the trade gets before it actually breaks above where it's supposed to, because I'm anticipating a move. Whenever I do that, it's always a starter position. I never put on a big position when I haven't gotten the signal yet. I'm just kind of legging in. 63.50 is where this thing needs to basically get, which is above value. All right. And a couple other ones, you know, again, I'm looking for other areas of the market than just the commodities, right? This Lind, which has saw some call buying. I thought this had a chance to kind of turn, but didn't go. I'm still in it. I didn't take this one off. And then Valero, which didn't close where it needed to, but I like the chart a lot in Valero. All right, I would have liked to see it close inside value for confirmation, which is just above like 84.20. If not, if it doesn't hold a 50-day moving average, I will be out of this trade. All right, so that's the setups, and again, you know, like I said, I took off Exxon today, and this was my substitution. I mentioned earlier that I was looking for something else, but the refiner is a little bit different. Then it's still, of course, energy, but a little bit different. I was looking at a couple things like Fang, which I did not pull the trigger on. I like the check back into top of value, but I don't need to be adding any more trades than that. So again, right now it's picking and choosing. This is one setup too. I apologize if I didn't mention this one. I think CVS looks interesting in here too, just back above the 50-day moving average. Going to have some resistance at 107, but maybe this can get back out to new highs. I like the managed care space too. Cheap play right now in this market. Tech Resources was a name that we talked about. I did take another target in this one. I almost got my next target in Vail. I just missed it by a few pennies. But again, nice breakout. And I've got one more target to go in Tech Resources. We'll see if I get it. If it pulls back, that's also fine at this point too. Here's Valet. Again, I was looking for $20 today. I didn't get it. Maybe I might actually hold for 20.94, which is kind of the next target up. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Again, you know, bottom line for the day and for this overall market, it's choppy. You got to be really strategic. And just realize that, again, I keep preaching this in the market that the expensive names, right, the ones with high price to sales ratios like a Snowflake, just continue to get cheaper. My philosophy right now is that you could day trade anything that you want to, right? You know, these names like an Upstart had momentum yesterday, not so much today, right? And that's how a lot of these names in downtrends are acting. They'll show you one good day of strength, and then that's it. They fall apart, right? And there's a lot more names that look challenged that way. Upstart's an actually pretty good one. The other name, you know, if you look at this Affirm, for example, right? This name doesn't look like it's done going down, right? Weak bounce, and it looks like it may go down and revisit the lows if I had to guess, right? But you know, the 20-day moving average is not something can get through. Look at this, right? Miss, 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 miss. And I see so many people again trying to, oh, it's, this is a beautiful setup. At least I don't see as many people doing that as I did last month. These names are not, they've given you no confirmation that they're done going down. So if you're, avoiding these names that are in downtrends like this, I think you're doing a pretty decent job. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.